Wait.
Co-chair of the River Road Community Organization. And I will turn it over to Charles C.
Hi, I'm Charles C. I live on Norman Avenue and I'm on the board. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I'm Claire Strawn. I'm the other co-chair, and I'm going to call on Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan Kittleson, and I live on LK Drive, and I recently became a member of the board. Nice to talk to you all.
Call on someone else, Susan.
Carly.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carly Gabrielson. I'm also a new member of the board, and I'm on LK Drive near Park.
Jackie.
Hi, I'm Jackie Worcester. I'm over near River Road Elementary on James Street, and I am also on the board.
Great. Who else? What other board members are here? Okay. They can introduce themselves if and when they come. So next we have some time for announcements, and our standing announcements is to share with you all decisions made by the board, and John will do that section.
Thank you, Claire. Just a second. Let me bring it back up again. We've got a few that we haven't managed to get out over the past few months. So starting with December 17th, I guess I should read everything we decided. The RRCO website will include photos and short bios of our board members. We've already spoke to you about the statement we made about the Howard Elementary Vaccination Clinic. Then in January, we agreed to sponsor a canned food drive for Food for Lane County, which we did on February 13th. We also agreed to send a letter to the mayor and city council requesting they determine the extent that subdivision codes, covenants, and restrictions preclude the enforcement of House Bill 2001. We created an ad hoc committee to work with Cascade Housing in the development of their River Road apartments. We sent a letter to the city council expressing our appreciation that a work session on toxic pollution, including Zippo's laminate vibration disturbance, have been approved, and we requested it be scheduled. A little bit of editorial comment. It is not scheduled. So if you're concerned about Zippo, please send a letter or an email to the city council and the mayor and ask them to include it in their upcoming work sessions on pollution, because my words, the word I've gotten from staff is they don't intend to include it. So please do so. Okay. And then on February 21st, we renewed our annual membership in Eugene Neighbors Inc., which is a 501c3 to support neighborhood organizations. We also sent a letter to the Eugene City Council and LT Board of Directors prior to the discussion of deliberation on Moving Ahead, where we outlined the participation we've had in the neighborhood organization on the design of EmX, and particularly EmX and River Road. And we also pointed to the things in the our draft neighborhood plan that will be helped by EmX, such as separated bike lanes and additional pedestrian bike crossings along the route. And then in the March meeting, we formed an ad hoc committee to plan a board retreat, which we held on April 3rd, which you'll hear more about from Claire. And then we also formed a committee to see how we could do hybrid meetings in the future. And finally, we modified our membership on our ad hoc River Avenue Navigation Center Good Neighbor Agreement Committee. That's long enough. I don't know what that acronym looks like. Anyhow, myself, Misty Frost, and Dwight Owens. So those are the decisions we made in the past 3 months. Our charter says that if a standing member of the neighborhood wants to discuss reversing any of those decisions, you can do so. Hearing none, I'll turn it back over to you, Claire.
Okay, thank you. So we did have a half-day board retreat to onboard our new board members. And we didn't, but according to our charter, we didn't make any decisions at that retreat. So there's a lot of decisions that we're ready to make that we will be making at our next board meeting a week from today. And just briefly, what we talked about is we reviewed the charter and we realized there's a lot in the charter that is not current. John, you have to admit people. And so we have a charter review committee like that John just described. And it also helped to do that because it clarified some kind of questions we had, one of which was the board does approve the minutes of the general meeting, but those are posted publicly. So if you don't approve those minutes, then you can ask the board, you can decline that decision when that's announced at the general meeting. Is that clear as mud? Okay. Then John and I compiled the 7-page orientation, that kind of a brain dump of everything about RRCO that we thought board members should know, and we will post this publicly, so it's like a public record document, basic past practices and our relationship to other civic bodies and the different committees there are and what we do. Okay. We decided that there's a number of people who are interested in developing a newsletter committee. So we proposed a newsletter committee. And in fact, a paper newsletter is going to be sent out before June. It's required. And so if you have thoughts about what you'd like to see on that, the newsletter committee will be taking that up. Susan and me and Charles E. and I'm not sure who else is in it. And that it was suggested that we have at least a section of it with Spanish translation in it. And it was also suggested that we have Spanish translation or closed caption at these meetings. So those are resource things that we can work on putting together. We spent a section of the meeting talking about conflict resolution and decision making, and what we came to, we haven't made a formal vote on this yet, but there is a version of Robert's rules for small nonprofits that's less formal than what we've been using, and we want to kind of shift to that less formal modality. It's still officially Robert's rules, but it's like for people, for real people. Okay, so we'll be voting on that at the board meeting. We also need to review in the upcoming board meetings, review the governance of committees. There are a number of committees that don't have a board member. They're chaired by other members of the community, and we just have to review how we want to work that kind of accountability with committees. And let's see. Oh, and we decided that it would be valuable to have a quarterly longer meeting, a repeat of the board retreat.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
I don't know why somebody muted me. That was not good when I was talking. Okay. So then we also went through and looked at all of the things that we're doing and talked about what we should continue doing, what we should stop doing. And we have a long list of things that we should start doing, which is longer than the list of things we should stop doing. And a number of the new board, all the boards said what they would like to do off of that list. And so we have some volunteers for leadership positions that the officers will be elected by the board at our next board meeting. And so far, Carly has stepped forward to be the treasurer and Stefan has stepped forward to be the secretary. And so those are some of the considerations that we'll do on a week from today. I want to just check if anybody else has something to add to that relatively condensed report.
I do, Claire, just a
Yeah.
quick announcement that we have enabled the live transcript for this meeting. So there's a CC button at the bottom of your Zoom controls. It's auto-generated, so it's not 100% perfect, but we're trying it out tonight to see how helpful it is. So let us know if you could see that.
And you can drag that little band over to the side if you want, so it's not covering people's faces.
Yep.
Okay. So it was really exciting. We have a really great new board. We're really excited to start working together and taking on some of this. And I think you'll see a lot more opportunities coming up for people to be involved at different levels. In terms of committee work and just things that need to be done, and ways to get the fact that RRCO exists out into the community more, and more accessibility for folks. So yeah. Anything else? Okay, Jan.
Is this an actual public opportunity to share some items?
Announcements.
Announcements?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I just put one item in the chat. We had a really successful work party in the Cottonwood Grove, which is between the bike path and the Filbert Grove. We're working with the city, and this is kind of a new location for battling the ivy. So I put a little message about that. A few other items that I will put into the chat. A Zoom presentation about diverse applications of permaculture and diverse benefits. That's the Master Gardeners are hosting me to make that presentation on Zoom. I'll put that into the chat. There's another Zoom presentation coming up on Thursday. I'll put this in the chat. It's a person I know, the 1 square foot garden. It's a popular and effective way to grow a lot of vegetables in a small space. And then I'll put this in the chat also, a site tour here at my place on Benjamin, where I've been transforming my property for 22 years and producing a lot more food, energy, water, and recreation here on site, all for the purpose of reducing ecological footprints. And we also had a really good front yard garden tour this past Saturday too. There's front yard gardens here and there all over the neighborhood. And I would encourage everybody here to do the same and encourage your neighbors as well. Okay, that's
Great.
good.
Thank you, Jan. Susan, I see your hand. Jolene, you're up next after Susan.
Hi, I just wanted to remind everyone that the Eugene Porch Fest is an event that happens every summer. It's happening this summer from July 7th through July 11th. And they are currently accepting applications for people to host events. This is a great way to highlight the beautiful gardens that you have all created. And you can use your beautiful space and we can highlight and showcase our great neighborhood. I highly encourage people just to go check it out. You can find, I'll put a link to their website where you can get the information on in the chat window. And, you know, it's a great opportunity to both support nonprofits as well as showcase the gorgeousness and beauty of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Susan, is that mini concerts on the porches?
It is mini concerts. Thank you.
Okay.
Much better explanation.
Jolene?
I had a question about the board agenda and items that will be discussed, and maybe just to clarify how we can all have information about topics to be discussed in upcoming votes in case we wanted to provide some feedback to the board.
Good question. You know, there's a lot of kind of work that we're doing to improve those kind of communications. And I think publishing the board agenda is a great idea. We talked about it's really hard to get it together in the 1 week space between the general meeting and the board. So that's an aspiration, but that's one reason why I listed some of the things that we'll be doing at the next agenda, because we haven't sorted that out yet.
Sure. Okay.
Thank
So
you.
if I had feedback about our meeting format in terms of hybrid or in person or Zoom, how do I provide that feedback to the board?
Co-chair at riverroadco.org.
Okay, and that'll get to the board meeting.
Yes,
Thank you.
thanks, Jolene. Any other announcements?
Yes,
Ms. Deco?
I just wanted to, if anybody doesn't know this already, but that the 4J school district is looking for or to fill 2 positions on the board. And I've dropped the link in the chat. If you know of anyone that might be a good candidate, any BIPOC community members are highly encouraged to seek out these positions. So yeah, just spreading the word, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay. So are we ready to go into the meat of the meeting? John, have I got that right? Okay, so Jolene will introduce our guest, and while she's doing that, I will give our guest screen share permissions. Okay, go Jolene.
Great, thanks. Hi, everybody. I'm Jolene Simpson, and I'm on the Social Justice Committee for RRCO. And we have invited Mika Contreras, a staff person from the Community Alliance for Lane County. Mika is the program organizer for education justice through CALC. CALC has a decades-long history of commitment in our community and nationally to working on issues of peace and justice, opposing racism and anti-Semitic activities in particular. And when in this setting, the Social Justice Committee became interested in inviting Mika when we learned about the work that CALC was doing regarding the racial harassment policy that the school board for 4J recently adopted. And we are also interested in more detailed information about issues of racist harassment, anti-Semitic harassment within the school system, particularly at North Eugene High School. So I'll let Mika take it from there.
Mika, I did make you co-host, which allows you to pop up the share screen. And I also wanted to say that make a note of questions you want to ask in the chat, and we'll monitor the chat and forward those questions on to the speakers.
Thank you, Jolene. I appreciate the little introduction. So as Jolene said, my name is Mika Contreras, and I am the Justice and Equity Program Organizer over at CALC. And I'm thrilled to be able to talk to you tonight about some of the work that we've been doing, because it really is extremely important work, and it is about the safety of our whole community and our students. So I appreciate everyone being here and willing to listen. I have a lot I want to cover tonight, so I'm going to try to go as quickly as possible, but I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. So I'm going to try to share screen right now, and hopefully you guys can give me a thumbs up if you can see the presentation. Thumbs up? Okay, great. Okay, so we'll be talking about the racial harassment policy that I've been advocating for pretty much since last summer. I've been in my position since last March, so just about a year now. And we'll talk about some of the progress we've made and just what's been happening. And I'm going to start. With a really wide lens, because I think it's extremely important for us to look at the context of where we are in terms of place and time, and then we'll focus in on some of the details, and then we'll hopefully end with a wider view again, and hopefully everyone can think of things and how they can help. So first of all, we have to really look at the wide picture here, which is we're still dealing with the legacy of racism and how our country was founded. So we are still dealing with all of these things: the legacy of slavery, the Jim Crow laws, settler colonialism, forced removal of indigenous people, genocide, and systems that are built on white supremacy and anti-Blackness. And this includes everything, but it's also in our education system. And Oregon has a long history of racist policies and customs, which you are all probably aware of already, but at one time, Oregon was set up to be the white utopia. People fled from the South to Oregon and tried to turn this into a whites-only state. And so there's been racist policies and customs that have been built in for a long time, and it wasn't actually until the 2000s that racist language was removed from the Constitution. Oregon is also home to a disproportionate number of hate-based organizations, unfortunately, and it's just important to note that race still remains a master status, and it affects everything, all outcomes, from disproportionate discipline of children in school to unequal health outcomes for our Black, Indigenous, Latino, Asian, other communities of color. And so we have to be aware of that in everything that we do in fighting for more equals and more just systems, excuse me. And so we're gonna move in a little bit more now into Oregon, just in terms of what's been happening in schools. So we know that there have been, unfortunately, multiple school-related incidents that have involved hate symbols, including neo-Nazi ideology, the Confederate flag, nooses. It's kind of ramped up in the last couple of years. And as I said, we are home to a disproportionate number of hate groups, but our students are also being actively recruited by white nationalists, and unfortunately, they are targeting middle school boys. And we know that they're also actively organizing to try to gain power from the local school board level and, to higher levels, and they have been effective in certain places, which we can talk about a little bit later. But we also know that racist incidents in schools are on the rise, and we know that hate and bias incidents, they're predominantly motivated by race. So you're going to see that more often than anything else. And so why do we need a policy specific to racial harassment in 4J? This is something that people ask all the time, because there were policies about harassment, but there was nothing specific to racial harassment. And so to me, the most important thing that we should all come away with is that we can't constantly be reacting to events. We can't constantly be reacting in reactionary mode. That's not going to actually help make our students safer. It won't make our schools easier to be in and healthier places. We need to proactively address racism and how it's affecting everybody in schools so that we can prevent incidents from occurring. And you'll see the policy that I was advocating for is very based in education. So we'll go into that a little bit more. So again, why do we need it? We need to acknowledge the salience of race and the outcomes of the lives of our students and our community. We need to proactively address and interrupt rather than perpetuate harm. And like I said before, the current policies were inadequate. There was a harassment policy, but it was inadequate. And so we know from the instant I took this position last March, basically, I've been hearing about incidents from parents, students, and educators, because I actually also do exit interviews with educators that are leaving the district. And so I've been aware of it for a while. And so as soon as I heard about that and just heard about the persistence and saw the incredible amount of harm and trauma it was causing, especially to students, I immediately started doing research to try to figure out what would be the best policy, what have other districts implemented and what's going on, and try to bring it into 4J and make it, applicable to our community so that we can actually help our students feel safer. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some things that might be slightly upsetting. So just a warning to everybody, but I'm going to go into a little bit of what's been happening in our district. And so just real quick, the racial harassment has been ranging. It goes from regular, I wouldn't say regular, but common microaggressions, unfortunately, to racial slurs, to graffiti, to intimidation, and then to violence. So there has been quite a range that I've seen. And specifically, since we wanted to look at North, that has really been some of the most egregious things that I've seen happening this year. These included online harassment, including threats of sexual violence and lynching, just abhorrent and very traumatic to the whole community, because when these things happen, it's not only happening to one student, it's happening to the whole community. It's traumatizing and affecting the whole community. So a lot of the other things that I've been hearing are, educators who have not been intervening and overlooking incidents. This could be because they don't know how to intervene. They don't feel like they have the district support. There's many reasons for this, but this is definitely happening. And so while I was advocating for this policy, I also simultaneously created a community advocate program. And so we connect students and caregivers to trained peers who can help them navigate after they've been victims or have had to deal with any kind of bias, hate, or harassment. And then also we help other caregivers, just anybody who's experiencing a barrier, really, but that's where it came from. So another reason why we were advocating is because the district also needs to be doing this work. It can't solely be on the hands and the shoulders of a community nonprofit. We need to actually dig into the problems and start working from the root levels to fix them. The other thing is that before this policy, there was no way to disaggregate the data to see where incidents were occurring. And so even though I knew there were specific hotspots, there was no way for, say, the administration to say, oh, this is happening here, and we need to focus in and target in on this area. And then another reason is our current political climate. We know that national and statewide events are directly correlated to increased harassment and targeting of our students. And just for an example, I could tell you, you all are probably familiar with Newburgh, the Newburgh School District, who banned anything that was LGBTQI, the flag or BLM. And the day after that, there were students in 4J who were coming and intimidating those students who were from those marginalized identities. So things ripple, we're all connected. And then, there's so many reasons, but to ensure that racial equity is foundational in the district and to prioritize safety, short and long-term mental and physical health of students, staff, and educators. Because we know that racial harassment contributes to poor educational and health outcomes. And I try to make these connections because it's not just, these are long, the implications of undergoing stress and trauma on a daily basis are huge. They have health implications that go to the next generation. And so we really need to recognize that and recognize the power that we have to try to create more safe and just systems. So like I said, policy is a central tool to creating lasting change. We know that the ability to learn is compromised when students don't feel safe. We know that racial harassment contributes to racial trauma and stress and can lead to racial battle fatigue, which can result in poor health outcomes, which is one of the reasons why racism was just declared a public health crisis in Lane County and also nationally. And like I said, that trauma can be passed intergenerationally, through epigenetic changes. And so whatever we're doing now, it has broad implications for the health of our community in the long term. And now I'm just gonna let some students speak out so we can hear some examples from our students so I'm not the only one talking and you can hear from them themselves. And I believe we're starting with someone from North, actually.
Thank you very much. Taryn from North is next.
Hello. So I wanted to start this off by saying thank you guys for recognizing that there are issues of racism that are going on within our school, because it has felt like no one has been talking about it. So yeah, thank you for addressing that. But it also seems like the support from our school is mostly coming from our teachers of color and our affinity group leaders, and there's not a lot of support from like visual support from superintendents and faculty above, I believe. And so just maybe some more transparency between that. And then also, as Yoselin said, mental health, I think, is incredibly important to be addressing that, and just mental health resources, that we need more resources.
See if we can get this one working.
Wonderful. Additionally, we, in response to the racism struggles that we have had, we did a campaign of pictures where we had students volunteer to be in pictures holding signs that represented unity and acceptance of people of all races and backgrounds, which was really cool. But on that note, does not solve the problem, and I definitely agree with the other reps that there needs to be more education in that field. I think we have an African American lit class, and I know we have a class that teaches some critical race theory, but those are the only two classes that I have heard of, and that I think accumulates to 3 class periods over the whole term. So that's, or 3 class periods available per term. So that's not access to a ton of students.
See if this YouTube is cooperating. Sorry, everyone. Let's get this. Okay, here we go. Here's the next one. That was someone from Sheldon. This is someone from IHS.
And then basically the biggest thing I want to talk about today is concerns over a lack of support for Black students during Black History Month. At all of the host schools we have here, and the active work schools and staff are working to do, rather than just take some more performative actions, like just like showing facts, making posters or things like that, and actually working to engage with and listen to Black students. I talked to some students and I do some quotes I'd like to share with you all. But I had a student stay with me, I'll start the quote now, who said, there's a lack of support even within staff, and it makes it harder to support underrepresented students when our staff can't even step up and support the marginalized students simply because they don't feel a personal relation to them. It's the end of the quote. So there's just been concerns from Black students and students of color specifically about this lack of support they feel from teachers who do not share their racial background or ethnic background, and it's very apparent. And these concerns are popping up even now when there's sort of like this show within the school of posters and things for Black History Month. And I did have a Black student leader within the 4J community who stated it allowed me to include this quote, and they asked me to, and I'll start with the quote now. It said, "I'm scared to be direct about who isn't doing what and who's blatantly lacking in supporting marginalized students because of the risk to my own safety and the prospect of being targeted." It's the end of the quote. There's definitely safety concerns that students are feeling every single day, especially with these racist occurrences happening within all of our schools. It is felt throughout the district, and just because like one large incident isn't happening specifically within International High School or Churchill or anything like that, these occurrences do happen and do affect these students throughout. and I don't believe proper care is being given to these students, especially Black students, especially during Black History Month, when we should be honoring and working to support them as best as we can. And I don't believe, and other students I believe can echo this, that it is students' jobs to always advocate for themselves, especially when they are living a marginalized identity and have to deal with this every day. So I just want to share that with you all. And then just the last thing,
And one more.
Skip. Ms. Ryan?
Good evening, board members. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm June and this is Joseph. We are both non-binary high school students here in 4J. We would like to bring to your attention the reporting system for reporting hate and bias incidents. We need a system that doesn't rely on law enforcement, building principals, or assistant principals. Part of this is in the racial harassment policy, which we fully support. One thing the racial harassment policy is lacking is a texting line that students can use to report incidents. We always talk about how people will be extra mean on the internet because they can hide behind a screen. I believe we can use that anonymity to our advantage. Students will most likely feel more comfortable reporting an incident via text than in person, or even on a phone call with someone. I believe that having a texting line will lead for reporting to happen at a more timely manner. If the incident is reported in person, the person receiving the report should let the reportee know what to expect when they report, whether or not they will stay in the loop or confidentiality will be in place without the reporting. If they will be left out, they come up with a plan and timeline of what will happen, or tell the reportee how they can stay in communication with the incident, whether it's through papers. After an incident is reported, whether it's reported in person or online, the student or staff should be kept updated on what's happening, what's being done.
We've both experienced confusion in the reporting system. We reported an incident of racism and insensitivity from a staff member to the administration. Given it took us a month or so to report it due to the lack of knowledge on how to report incidents, lack of trust that something would happen, and finding time during school hours. Eventually, we both did within a few days with one another. A few weeks later, June happened to see the administrator we had reported to and asked them if anything had happened. June was told that a conversation took place, but the administrator couldn't tell them due to admin staff confidentiality. The same thing happened to me. After that conversation, it left us feeling in the dark and just kind of uninformed. We need more transparency. It made us wonder if something even happened or if that was just an excuse because no action took place. The feeling of hopelessness is making us very wary of this system. All students should feel supported speaking up for themselves and their peers. We understand that the administration has a lot on their plate, but that still doesn't make us acceptable. We wish this topic would get attention, but change is past due. Thank you for your time.
Mika, just a time check. I think we have about 10 more minutes.
Okay, I'm almost done. Don't.
Okay.
So those were some students, and now those were all recorded prior to the adoption of the racial harassment policy. And the text line that those students were advocating for was something I was trying to get in. So I'm going to go ahead and skip to everything you see here was something that we advocated for to be in the policy, and the ones with the check marks are the ones that were that did make it into the policy. So it is district-wide, which is great. It applies to everybody, including anybody who's volunteering. It's clear racial harassment is clearly defined. It does require annual training and education for the whole district, staff, educators, admin, and students. It does offer support for students and includes a community resource guide that they should be working on right now so that they can connect students to support. It is non-punitive, so the emphasis is on educational and restorative and transformative responses, not only on discipline, and it also focuses on the school-wide climate and culture. And there is, we have worked on ease of reporting, so there are now multiple ways for students and others to report concerns. There should be follow-up now. Everything has to be categorized, and so that everything can be disaggregated so that we can see what's going on, and there will be reports, yearly reports to the board, so we can figure out where things are happening and how we can improve. The one thing that we advocated for that they did not put in the policy but is in place is the hate and bias response team. I've been advocating for that for a long time. And what ended up happening is they did implement a hate and bias incident response team. They have their own name for it that I can't recall at the moment, but it is not in the policy. So we have to ensure that they're going to keep that active and going, because it's not mandated by the policy. And so just to finish up, I know I don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to talk a little bit about restorative and transformative practices. A lot of people are curious, why are we, why non-punitive? And I know this is the same with students too. And, and it makes sense because this is the community that this is what we're used to. But the whole point of transformative justice is really to get at the root causes of things. And so the three biggest reasons I would say are to address harm without replicating it, to ensure that we're interrogating the root causes so that we can look in how all the systems are working together that allowed the harassment or whatever the harm caused to happen to begin with, so we can focus on all of them, not just focusing on one person, and to promote true accountability and community. And so I'm gonna just play, how much time do I have left? I was gonna play like
2 minutes.
Oh, that's so sad. But I'm gonna go ahead and play a really short, I'll play only part of this. I wasn't gonna play it all anyways, but just so people understand a little bit about what transformative justice is. I feel like this video does a great job. Let me see if I can.
So when I'm trying to explain transformative justice to people, I usually back away from, I don't go straight at, okay, this is transformative justice. I usually actually go back to punitive justice. I start out with like, what we're used to and what we've been socialized into is punitive justice. And then I ask people, if I'm in a room full of people, even in a room full of friends, I'll be like, how many of you grew up in an experience where you were punished when harm happened? And I give examples. You were expelled, you were put in detention, you were suspension, you were put on timeout. But the main move was you're removed from community in some way because you've done harm. And people are like, oh yeah, everyone either has that experience or they were part of spaces where they saw that experience.
Transformative justice is addressing harm, but also understanding why that harm happened and addressing the underlying dynamics that created conditions for this harm to happen in the first place. Mm-hmm. And so it's not just addressing the harm between two or more people, but addressing the conditions of the community that allowed for that to be normal.
Transformative justice asks us not only about accountability for the individual, for the harm that's been caused, but to think more largely about how all of us may have contributed or are contributing or are part of these systems that create the harm that we're trying to address.
Okay, and I know I'm out of time. I'm just going to leave really quickly with the continued advocacy that's super important. So that all of the policy was adopted unanimously on March 2nd, but it's not fully operational. So we really need to make sure that the educational component of the policy is going to be excellent and have student input. I want to ensure that text line is up and ready to go because they haven't made any progress on that yet either. We also need to make sure that the district is actively training staff, educators, and hopefully students eventually in transformative justice and restorative justice. We need to make sure the community resource guide is being created and being given to individuals, and we should continue to advocate for more mental health resources to be made available to the communities where these events are occurring. And now I will stop because I could go on forever. So thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mika. I'm going to ask the chairs, do we have time for 2 questions, 3 questions? A few. Okay. So if you have a question and you want to send it in the chat to me, Jolene Simpson, I'll take a look and perhaps we can ask a few questions. There was a question earlier, someone had asked about are these incidents being reported to law enforcement? And I know that there was a youth who was arrested, who was charged related to a North Eugene High School incident. Do you want to address that, Mika?
Sure. Unfortunately, most of these incidents are not being reported at all. And that's really the shame of it. And I don't advocate for reporting to the Eugene Police Department personally, and that's an entirely different conversation that would take much longer. But yes, the majority of these incidents are not even being reported to the school administration. So.
Let's see. Any other questions?
I was trying to put my hand up. Jolene, you shared an article, I think it was yesterday, with a couple of articles in it about some bills that were passed that relative to this. No, not ringing a bell. Here, I'm trying to pull it up.
Yeah, maybe another email.
Yeah, so I have it here. It's sorry. I get flustered when I'm trying to go fast.
Well, Misty, we're out of time now. We have several other questions lined up.
Oh.
There was the All Students Belong bill that passed, and I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to, but that did make it it banned the use of, swastikas, nooses, Confederate flags.
It's early childhood suspension and expulsion prevention program. And I guess it says in here that they will take place or they will be implemented in 2026. And I was just curious your thoughts on that timeline. Like, I know we're not the state, but I'm certainly hoping that we can make changes happen quicker than like
Yeah.
on the line,
Yes, I completely agree with you. I mean, we are, as a district, they are looking at ways to reduce disproportionate discipline, especially of our Black, Indigenous, and other communities of color. It's not going fast enough. Nothing is going fast enough for my taste, but that's why we keep working on it. And I would love to have a longer conversation with you if you want to about this. I know this is probably not the perfect time to do it, but.
Okay. Well, I am sorry that the presentation is cut short, basically, but we really thank you for your time, Mika. And I just want to add that the Social Justice Committee will be meeting on Wednesday, and you can find that Zoom information in your newsletter. And we would welcome all of you to attend. We're going to discuss the racial harassment policy and implications for our RRCO at our next meeting. And I just do want to emphasize that, as Mika said, these things are happening all the time in our schools. And there was a case recently that was really highlighted at North Eugene High School that did rise to the level of drawing district-wide attention, the attention of law enforcement, but that's not the only situation. And it does cause great harm to our young people, both the perpetrators, the people who are involved in harassing, as well as the recipients of that harassment. So it's an important issue to continue to focus on. So thank you very much.
Can I suggest that if there are continuing questions that weren't addressed, you go ahead and put them in the chat, and maybe we can post the questions and responses either in the newsletter or in the Facebook page. Is that okay?
And if anyone wants to get involved in advocating for for students and education justice, please let me know. I'm at Calc. And if you have any questions, please forward them to me, and I'm happy to answer them all. Thank you again.
Thank you, Micah. Thank you, Jolene. Turning it over to you, John.
Thank you, Claire, and I will turn the participants list over to you to manage, if you would, please. So the second and last item on our agenda is learning what's really happening with Moving Ahead and EmX. We, as you probably know, the City Council and LTD, and I believe the Metropolitan Policy Committee have all approved the Moving Ahead of Moving Ahead. And through that process, there was a large amount of citizen involvement, a lot of information going back and forth, some valid, some not. So we thought we would go directly to the source and ask the planners from both the city and LTD to come and fill us in on what's happened, what's going to happen, and answer some questions about the project. So we are very fortunate to have with us tonight both Andrew Martin, who's the LTD development planner, and Rob Innerfeld, who's the transportation planning manager for the city of Eugene, to come and fill us in. And I believe, Andrew, are we starting with you? Would you like to get started? And before we do, if you have questions, put them in the chat, and given whatever time we have left, we'll forward those on to folks. So I'll be following those. Thank you. Andrew?
Thanks.
You're on.
Yeah, so I'm Andrew Martin, development planner with Lane Transit District, and with me is Rob Innerfeld, City of Eugene. And we have a really short presentation, just giving a quick update on what's been going on with Moving Ahead, and want to leave a lot of time for questions that you all might have. Do you mind if I share my screen, whoever's the host?
Yeah, I think I have to make you co-host. See.
I already
Claire,
made
could
a
you do-
co-host. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Rob.
I don't think I have it. If you
Would
give
you
it to
give Andrew
Rob.
Martin co-host?
Sorry, but that accidentally hit your recording button when everything shifted. So
There we go.
That's better. So as I mentioned, Rob and I are here to talk about Moving Ahead. And it's been a while. I think we haven't been to the River Road Community Organization since late 2019. So we have some exciting updates to share with everybody. I think many people are aware, but for those who don't know, Moving Ahead is a partnership between the City of Eugene and Lane Transit District. And we've been studying a range of alternatives, looking at redesigning 5 major corridors in Eugene. And our goal is to make them safer, more accessible for people walking, biking, and riding the bus. Since 2015, we've been working with the public and conducting analysis on a wide variety of topics, everything from traffic down to impacts to endangered species. So a lot of different things. And in addition to River Road, you'll see on the map in blue, we are taking a look at Highway 99, downtown, out to 30th Avenue and LCC, Coburg Road, and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. So the phase of work that we've been doing since 2015, it's wrapping up, and that is resulting in what we call the selection of a locally preferred alternative. And that is a fancy way of saying that we're kind of narrowing the options that we're studying. Because on all of these corridors, with the exception of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, we've been studying 3 things: a no build, an enhanced corridor, which is kind of a moderate level of investment, and EmX, which is our highest level of investment. And so selection of a locally preferred alternative, it's setting that high level vision for the corridor. But it's important to know that we've been studying design concepts and not really specific designs. So we have a lot of work to do to make this a reality. So happy to talk a lot about the project's history, but I know a lot of people have been engaged in it over time. So I wanted to get to kind of what's going on now. And as I mentioned, LTD's board and the City Council of Eugene have selected alternatives on each of these to advance to move them forward. So on Highway 99, they selected enhanced corridor. On River Road MX, 30th Avenue to LCC, they selected a no build, basically to reconsider that corridor after some other priorities have been addressed. Coburg Road, they selected an enhanced corridor with some additional study and community engagement. and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, they selected enhanced corridor. John's a little ahead of us. In May, actually, we will be going to the Metropolitan Policy Committee, or MPC, which is the policy body of our local metropolitan planning organization, and we'll ask them to adopt the same locally preferred alternative. So what does this mean for River Road? For those who haven't been engaged with the project since 2015, I did want to highlight specifically kind of what the big picture is on River Road with the selection of EmX. So in a broad sense, that means we're going to continue working on making EmX, developing EmX as a concept. What we have so far conceptually would be that most of River Road would have what we call bus and turn lanes. So the outer lanes of the street conceptually would be turned into these bus and turn lanes, and then you'd have one lane in each direction and a center left turn lane. You can see the graphics in the top right, the one on the bottom showing kind of the lane configuration. That's all south of Beltline. And then north, as you go north towards Beltline, we all know Beltline has a lot of congestion issues. That applies to cars just as well as the bus. And so there would be kind of an off-street path to make it safer for people who are walking and biking to get through the intersection, and a little section of dedicated transit lane so that the bus doesn't get stuck in traffic as long. And all along River Road, you would see more protected crossings for pedestrians, protected bike lanes for a lot of the roadway. We believe that these investments will not only help the buses get through traffic, but also help calm the street down a little bit. We've heard from many people who live in the area and elsewhere that River Road doesn't feel safe because a lot of people speed, unsafe driving behaviors like weaving in traffic. We've seen several pedestrian fatalities in recent years. And I think also through our outreach and through other processes like the neighborhood plan you all are getting ready to adopt, that there's kind of a lot of people really excited to see investments on River Road to make it a more safe and inviting place. So kind of big picture, where do we go from here now that we have the high level vision? Selecting a locally preferred alternative doesn't mean we're ready for construction. We still have a lot of work to do to refine our designs and really get them final. When we're studying concepts, we want to be sure we can answer some basic questions about what we think is going to happen, but a lot of the small details still need to be worked out. So we're working on kind of scoping that process. City Council has indicated that they want us to prioritize River Road and Highway 99. And just based on kind of how the projects will probably shake out, we're going to start off by focusing on River Road, and we're working on what that process looks like. We expect to kind of figure out our plan for funding and actually doing that process this summer. And we probably will be coming back out to engage with you all in late 2022 or early 2023. And then that sets us up, once we refine these designs a little bit, to do the sometimes really hard pieces of seeking funding and actually getting through the environmental review process, which would then lead to construction and eventually being able to use a better River Road. So that's really high level. There are actually a lot of steps in here, and it's hard to give a really specific timeline because some things like funding don't always go in our favor, and sometimes they happen really quickly. So we are getting started on the process to engage the public and refine our designs. And we're, like I said, targeting late 2022, early 2023 to start that process, and that'll take a little time. And in the background, we're going to be working on those other pieces like funding the project and trying to get ready to do the final environmental review. So we're working and making progress on seeing this become a reality, but there's still a lot of time to engage with us and to really make sure that this project meets the community's needs. So with that, I'm happy to talk at length about anything, but I would say we have thousands and thousands of pages of work we've already done on our website, movingahead.org. You can get signed up for our email list, where we will be broadcasting all of the upcoming plans and progress We have about 1,000 people now. I would love to see that get much, much larger because we don't spam, just emails when important things are going on. So sign up, and Rob and I would love to answer any questions you all have.
Okay,
John, I'll just jump in and say, if there's
yes,
specific
please.
things, you send us a list of questions ahead of time. If there's things you feel like Andrew didn't cover in that, feel free to, as the facilitator, feel free to bring those up.
Okay. Yeah, I'll start with one of those. And we do have a question in the chat. Other folks, please put your questions in and I'll be sure to ask them. So the one that I think people are particularly interested in is what is it going to take as far as property acquisition is concerned? I know the original plans were done in 2017 did show some indication of what property acquisition would be anticipated. I know that the plan may change, but could you tell us what that particular study said?
Yeah, I'll take that, Rob. So the way that I think about these plans being conceptual is we're trying to get an idea of scale so that when we come talk to people, we can talk about that. So we know that on Lower River Road, we don't really need to acquire a lot of property. There might be a few specific places where we're trying to place a station. It's not a completely in the right of way type of thing, but there's not a large acquisition of property. And we can do, we're going to do a lot of things to design around specific features to minimize that. At Beltline, it's probably not a surprise, but if you want to, put a dedicated transit lane there and you want to put a shared use path to make it safer for people walking and biking, we probably do need to acquire property. And we've learned that that's probably unavoidable. So on Lower River Road, really not much, if any. Some probably just minor, 6 inches here, a foot there. Not along the whole way. It would be at station locations or where we need to build pedestrian crossings or some other feature like that. But at Beltline, we have identified that we'll have to really work to refine the designs with those property owners to try and minimize that and minimize the impact on them. But if we want to put those features there, it probably will require property acquisition.
And just to elucidate on that, and I'm not sure if Andrew got into detail on this, but the basic vision south of like Court Street or maybe slightly Corliss Street, south towards Northwest Expressway, is that the outer vehicle lanes would become what are called BAT lanes, bus and turn lanes. And so those lanes would just be for MX buses and turning, and potentially other buses too, and turning vehicles, people turning in and out of side streets and driveways. And that would enable the buses to efficiently use the corridor. One of the things, I've been to a lot of River Road meetings over the years. One of the things we've heard a lot about is complaints about speeding traffic on River Road. We did lower the speed limit on River Road. I'm not sure it had a big impact, but by our traffic analysis showed that the traffic will still flow on Lower River Road, but we think it'll flow a bit more slowly and but still smoothly. So that is part of the vision for moving ahead on River Road, like I said, from Corliss down towards Northwest Expressway. We will be re-looking at the traffic analysis we did before. We can certainly share the results of that with the community, but just want to make sure people understand that. And, Andrew, he showed earlier the map of the corridor, and you can see there will be enhanced pedestrian crossings along the corridor. We can certainly talk if there's other places where people feel like there's a need for enhanced crossings. We can talk about that as part of the design refinement. Also, the vision also calls for protected bike lanes along River Road. I'll stop at that.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
thank you.
On
Go
the
ahead.
traffic, on the traffic thing, because I do get that a question a lot. I think it popped up in the chat. So we are really concerned. We're not trying to make driving on River Road a terrible experience. So we modeled every intersection using some traffic signal modeling software. I don't personally do it. We have engineers do it. And basically all the intersections operate the same. Some intersections show that they get 5 or 10 seconds better. Some might get 5 or 10 seconds worse, but they all meet the city's standards. And as Rob mentioned, part of our work moving forward as we refine our designs will be to redo a lot of that work so that we're really sure that we are not negatively impacting car travel down River Road. Our goal is not to do that. It's just to make it more pleasant for everyone else as well.
Thank you. I've got a question here from the chat. We lost so many trees when River Road was white. How many trees will be removed for the EMX project? Our tree canopy is vital to cooling in our community.
Yeah, we have a report on that. I don't have the number off the top of my head. Certainly, if we are going outside of the right of way, there could be tree impacts. Whenever that occurs, we plant at least one tree for every tree that's removed. It might take time for that tree to grow, but we work with the urban foresters to plant, the appropriate trees. And in West Eugene, I think LTD planted more than 2 trees for every tree that was removed. So we do find ways to really make the urban tree canopy better in the long run, particularly replacing any trees that are cut down with trees that are really good street trees by working with our urban foresters. And
Andrew,
if you're-
correct me if I'm,
Go ahead.
well, just to jump in, correct me if I'm wrong, but really the tree impacts will mostly be at the state where the stations are constructed. Is that right? Because otherwise we're really not, except right up near Beltline, we're not really widening the street in any way.
That is true. And for anyone who's interested in trees, we have a whole report on trees. Actually, it's probably a couple hundred pages, but I'm happy to, after the meeting, dig out kind of what we think will happen, because again, we have to refine our design. So we're our goal with the analysis we've done is to look at the biggest impact we're going to have. And now our work is to kind of scale that down and really figure out how we can be creative in not impacting trees or not impacting people's property.
Andrew, I don't know if you recall, but do you have any idea what kinds of trees are likely to be removed? Are they the smaller street trees that were planted when the road was widened, or are they the big few Doug firs that we have left?
I don't want to give you an answer that might be incorrect. So if you don't mind, I will send you an email, John, after the meeting, and I will dig out kind of all of the tree impact work we've done and send like a summary to you. And if you want to share that with the neighborhood, it's all online. I just don't know it off the top of my head as well as I used to.
Okay, thank you very much. Here's another question. What other options were considered for enhancing better public transit in River Road as part of this project?
Well, the enhanced corridor was the other primary alternative we looked at. And it basically had the buses running in mixed traffic on River Road. Unlike the MX alternative, the buses would stop at regular bus stops. They might be enhanced in some way. We're looking at, what might a nicer bus stop look like on other corridors that, where the enhanced alternative was selected. Similar in terms of the pedestrian crossing enhancements, there would be no protected bike lanes. So that was the major other alternative we looked at for River Road. There were some enhancements to help the buses get through traffic with the enhanced alternative just up near Beltline.
Okay, thank you. Here's another. Is this project helpful in moving us towards meeting our climate change goals?
Well,
that is,
go ahead, Andrew.
Go ahead,
I'll follow up after you. All right.
Well, you go ahead.
Hopefully Andrew can answer more empirically than me, but the goal, we're trying to create an environment where not everyone needs a car to get around Eugene, that people can choose different modes to get around our community. And in some cases that might, that'll often be being intermodal, where they're using an e-scooter or a bike or walking to get to a bus stop, taking the bus to their destination, and then on the other end, using one of those different modes to get to where they're going after they get off the bus. Really making it easier for people to live either car free or car light. Maybe not every household of 2 people needs to have 2 cars. One of the things we're working on in your neighborhood is a pilot with Iris Place, the new development from St. Vinny's, where there's going to be an EV, an electric vehicle, car share vehicle there that residents there can use to get around. So if someone doesn't own their own car and lives at Iris Place, they can use an EV car share vehicle. There's maybe a second vehicle like that placed at the new Santa Clara LTD station that will be available to the general public. So really it's that, creating a community where, we're not telling people you're not allowed to drive, but where fewer people will be driving. Our community is growing. If everyone keeps driving in our community, we will actually, we will have River Road, by Beltline and Coburg Road and the Ferry Street Bridge. Some of those places in our community where there is traffic delay, I think it'll get a lot worse. So this isn't just an environmental issue, even though I know that's how the question was asked. Also, just in terms of community livability, we know there's some issues sometimes with spillover parking in your neighborhood for multifamily development. So trying to create a community context where people living in multifamily housing where they won't all own cars and where there'll be less of that spillover parking because more of them can rely on the bus and other transportation options to get around. Go ahead, Andrew, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the technical answer is it kind of depends on how many people ride the bus, right? If we run more buses, we did do some air quality analysis work, and it's not surprising, but LTD's contribution to regional greenhouse gases is extremely minimal. So I don't remember what it was with River Road MX, but some of the alternatives were positive and some of them were negative because we ran more buses and didn't get a lot more ridership. So but all of those showed like 1/100th of 1% movement in the region, right? In LTD's work on greenhouse gas, our greenhouse gas inventory, we learned that actually running electric buses is really great from a local air quality perspective, but the number one thing that we can do is get more people on the bus, right? Provide the option for people to ride the bus, because for every bus trip that someone's taking, a lot of those people would have been driving cars. And that's really the biggest contribution LTD can make. And so what we're trying to do, like Rob said, is provide really good options for people, right? Making the bus go faster down River Road makes it not take twice as long as driving your car right now. So that's what we're trying to do. And our hope is that that contributes to our community's greenhouse gas reduction goals. And that work is kind of, I worked with the Climate Action Plan 2.0 folks. And if you look at the Climate Action Plan, it says we need to do some of the investments in Moving Ahead to make the bus work better for folks so that more people are willing to take the bus or to bike and walk because it feels safer to do that in their community.
Thank you. Here's one more. Right now, it can take 5 or more minutes to cross River Road at 5 p.m. Tell me how this will make this better. The traffic jam will extend to West 11th.
In terms of crossing the street, we're proposing to build a number of new pedestrian crossings. And drivers are supposed to yield to you when you're using those. Of course, it would be nice if we didn't need blinking yellow lights to warn people, but they do make it safer for people to cross. And so by putting more pedestrian crossings, it should be easier for you to cross the road.
Okay. Here's yet another. What percentage of the River Road community currently ride the bus, and how will this change that?
That's a tough question to answer, actually. I can tell you how many people ride the bus. I don't know what percentage of the community rides the bus to work, right? I don't know the total number of people in the community exactly are going to work. Our bus ridership is down, but it's going up actually right now. We're seeing people return kind of as the pandemic restrictions are lifting. We're seeing ridership return closer to where it was in 2019. River Road, the 51 and 52 are some of our most used routes. And our experience has been that EmX tends to increase ridership. So I guess not really a full answer, but kind of explanation why I'm not sure what the mode split is. In Eugene, I think it's about 4% overall of people take the bus.
Okay, thank you. Here's yet another. With all the new construction on River Road, how is losing traffic lanes a good idea? You've sort of alluded to it before, but you want to take another shot at it?
Not really. I think I answered it before. You know, like I said, our community is growing. We need to give people more options for how to get around our community. We're going to relook at our traffic analysis. We can certainly come back and talk about that at another meeting, but our take on it is that the traffic should still flow pretty well on River Road.
Okay. Will the buses be electric?
As of now, we are not able to purchase buses that are electric. They're the 60-foot buses. The technology is just not quite there. We have the 40-foot electric buses, but the EmX, they're all 60-foot articulated buses. And right now, the technology is really just not there to make those electric and have them run for kind of the length of time we need them to run. So right now, no plans to take EmX electric.
Okay, good. Has any consideration been given to adding back routes on the side streets? That would increase ridership.
I'll just say not as part of moving ahead. We did a comprehensive operations analysis in 2019, and we'll be doing that again. So if that's something people are interested in, I would say bring that up as we're doing the comprehensive operations analysis. I'll also note that our experience, and this is backed up in our ridership, is that the more we detour through neighborhoods, right, you have to do that a certain amount to get people close to the bus, but we don't find that those routes really provide as much ridership as our buses going down more busy corridors, right? Because they're going by less people, they're going by less jobs for every hour they're out there running. So they're certainly useful, and we definitely need those in our community. But our experience has been, and the experience of many communities around the world has been, that operating more frequently on major corridors tends to lead to more people riding the bus.
Thank you. This one sort of is related, I guess. Why not a smaller EMX bus?
I mean, our experience with MX is that it's not full all the time, but it certainly is full a lot of the time. So to the extent that we are filling up buses, or were in 2019 and early 2020 before the pandemic, we really think that there's a lot of value. And I'll say, even our regular fixed route buses, the 51 and 52 going up and down River Road, we often run articulated 60-foot buses on those routes because they also can get quite full at peak times. So smaller buses, they just don't hold as many people, and we're trying to move large numbers of people. So it really does make sense on River Road, even today, to run the larger bus.
Good. Could there be secure dry lockers for bikes at the bus stops to allow biking 6 or 8 blocks to the bus stop? Let me add a little bit to that. Could you talk a little bit about the planning you might be doing on the last mile concept? How do people get to and from the transit system? So 2 questions, bus lockers and last mile.
Sure. I love the lockers idea. We have those at the Santa Clara station that we opened. So we have a couple of lockers there. It would be great to put them everywhere, but I'll say that takes up more space. So as we're dealing with some of these issues about how do we put an MX station on River Road without going over somebody's property line, things like bike lockers are something that we have to think about, but also it's a kind of a trade-off of how big do those stations need to be? How much money do we have to spend on the project? First mile, last mile, we are still planning to have neighborhood routes. We're not going to cut those just because MX happens. Exactly how they'll work, I think that's kind of the next phase where we need to do work to address a lot of these really specific issues. But in our costing for the project, we have kept, neighborhood service. So it wouldn't just be on River Road. It would still serve the areas we're serving today. And then, of course, we hope to make it really safe and comfortable for people to walk and bike to the bus too, because a lot of people live a quarter or a half mile away, and we hope that they'll be able to do that safely to access the bus if they're not where the current loops go on either side of River Road.
You may be aware of the project we're working on to add a walking and biking space on Howard Avenue. And so we're definitely, interested in hearing from your neighborhood. Are there other streets where you think it's really important where there's not currently sidewalks? Part of the challenge is that including Howard, a lot of the other streets are county roads. And so just like, what does that look like? How do we work with Lane County to upgrade these streets? Historically, we've kind of looked to the county to upgrade them and then transfer them to the city. We've started to apply for some grants where the city is just taking a lead more, like on Howard's an example of that, or in the Santa Clara neighborhood. The county did the planning work, but then we applied for a grant to upgrade Hunsaker Lane. So we're going to be making that into a complete street in the next year or two. So we're definitely interested in hearing what are the streets where it's more challenging for people to walk or bike to River Road. A couple of other things we're doing is, you may be familiar with the Peace South Rides bike share system. We're hoping to expand that over time. I'm not sure if it'll eventually reach the River Road neighborhood, but that's definitely possible. The state of Oregon is interested in helping bike share systems become electrified, and that would also probably enable us to expand our range and add to the number of bikes. We're also getting ready to launch an e-scooter share system in Eugene, and so there may also be opportunities for people in your neighborhood to ride e-scooters to bus stops, or even just to ride them on the West Bank path to get to different destinations.
Great, thank you. That's very helpful. I would add that we're also involved in a planning process on the land use side down River Road corridor, and LTD and the city of Eugene have agreed to work with us to see how we can synergistically bring the land use planning and the transportation planning together to serve both purposes, and that's exciting. So let's see, I see one more here. Someone has asked just how applicable the pre-pandemic data analysis on writing and so forth can be updated or made more applicable to our new post-pandemic, hopefully post-pandemic environment.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get back quickly to where we were. As I mentioned, we're seeing more riders every week, but the great thing is, right, we're refining some conceptual designs. We have not funded this project yet, and actually there's another step where our city council and LTD's board are going to weigh in before anything's constructed. And if we do a lot of analysis and we find that the project doesn't make sense anymore, there is an opportunity. We don't have to go forward. But right now, what we're doing is we're refining these designs under the assumption that the world that we live in the future is going to look a lot like the world we live in the past. And hopefully we can grow that ridership, and hopefully more people are walking and biking, because that's what our community has said that they want to see in many plans and policies. So we're continuing to work towards a future where that's, possible. But we're going to continue to update this work, and we're going to continue to publish that work. And so, you can hold me to it. We're going to redo all of the ridership analysis and everything else as we go through the environmental process, and you'll be able to see that, and we can have another conversation about whether we still think it makes sense.
Great, thank you. The question I do think people might want to know the answer to, and I've run out of questions on the chats, and we have just a few more minutes, but if you have a burning one, please get it in there. This is the one I want to ask now. Who's going to pay for the construction of MX, and what's it going to do to operating costs?
So we're still working on that. I'll talk about the construction part, and then I'll let Andrew talk about operating. So if you look at the previous MX corridors in Eugene and Springfield, the bulk of the funding has been paid for with federal grants, and with the new infrastructure bill that was passed at the federal level, there's definitely funding available to pay for projects like this. However, there's also a requirement for what's called a local match. So often we've been able to get funding from the legislature to help pay for that, but we'll also look at what can LTD and the city contribute towards that local match. So it'll likely be a mix of local, state, and federal funding.
On the
talk about the operating side?
Yeah, sure. On the operating side, LTD has been trying to add service. We have a new funding source called the State Transportation Improvement Fund. So, I can't commit any specific resources. That's not my job. I'm not our finance team. Part of doing one of these projects is if we increase service, our cost on River Road will go up. And in the past, we have committed to, and we have never eliminated somebody's neighborhood route because we started an EmX project. Part of going through the project development phase with Federal Transit Administration is coming up with a really detailed financial plan proving that we can operate this with funding that we have, not speculative funding or funding we want, but funding we have. So we're hoping that through a lot of the efficiency we gain by not having buses stuck in traffic, we're able to actually add a good bit of service really without increasing our costs. If we go to 10-minute service on River Road, that will increase our cost because that's a really big service add. But it's actually really surprising. It doesn't seem intuitive, but if we run 50 or 80 buses a day up River Road, every 5 minutes that we lose at Beltline, it adds up to a lot of money every year. So between operational efficiency and protecting that investment as we increase service so that every year the bus doesn't get a little slower and a little slower, combined with a little bit of new revenue, we should be able to pay for increased service.
Great. Well, thank you very much. We managed to get everybody's questions in and get them answered. Thanks a lot. This is not the end of this issue. We've got years to go before we see EmX on River Road, assuming we do. So,
hey, John, could I just add one more thing?
Yes, please, Rob.
So just, I guess another way to think about this is typically for a bus, I don't know how frequently the buses run on River Road now. Is it like every 20 or 30 minutes? Is that
every
typical?
Peak periods, every 15 at peak.
15 at peak. Okay. So
30 off peak.
You're 30 minutes, you're going to want to look at the schedule. You're not just going to go walk to the bus stop and wait because you could be waiting for quite a while. That could be kind of frustrating. Andrew was saying there could be 10-minute service with MX. You could walk to the MX station and you're not going to have to wait more than 10 minutes for a bus during the peak periods, which would be, 7 in the morning to 7 at night or something like that. So it's just a lot more reliable way of having transit service. And the idea is that it's really important that our service continues to serve people who have no other choice. I think that's just a really important thing about LTD system is that for people that rely on the bus, that's there for them. But also for people that maybe aren't taking the bus right now because they don't think it's that convenient, there's an opportunity here that you can walk to the MX station, not wait more than 10 minutes. And it's just it's a reliable and convenient way to get around, to get to downtown, to get to the university and other key destinations. That's all I got. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Great. Thank you very much, Andrew and Rob, for coming today. Thanks to all the people who are here and your great questions. We'll continue to keep you informed. And that's a wrap, as they say in the biz. We are done for this evening. Thank you very much.